Welcome to A Photographer's Life, the channel that takes you behind the curtain into the world of professional architectural photography. Join us now for an episode with one of America's premier architectural photographers. Today's broadcast is a recent interview with veteran American architectural photographer, David Papazian. Today's interview was conducted by AIAP Director Alan Blakely. We hope you enjoy the show. If you do, please let us know by liking this episode and subscribing to this channel. Now, on with the show.
So we'd like to welcome everyone to this podcast this morning. Today we're talking with AIAP photographer David Papazian, based out of Portland, Oregon. Welcome, David. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me on, Alan.
David is an anomaly in the photography world. David has been in business for many years, and he is the less than 0.1% who has had a photography career that has lasted 40 plus years. So first off, congratulations, David. You are a success story, and we're here to try to understand how you've done it and the why behind your successful career. So thanks for joining us this morning.
You betcha. Yeah, it all started in 81 here in Portland, so it'll be 45. In August will be 45 years. Never thought I'd make it that long.
That's a remarkable career, especially when a lot of photographers measure their careers in months. So congratulations on that. Was photography always an interest of yours? Where did this all start?
Well, it started, I was a political science major back in the day. I went to junior college down in Redwood City, California, down by San Francisco.
Yeah.
And so when I was 18, I went to Europe as a student through the high school before that. And I was interested in photography, just took some photos when I went to Europe. And then I went when I was 19 and 20 as a student tour guide. And my dad had seen the photos that I was taking for fun. And my dad worked in the marketing department at the San Francisco Examiner newspaper.
Oh, wow.
And he had an art background. He was an art director. And so he showed some of the photos that I had taken in Europe to the photographers at the newspaper. And they thought I had some talent. And at that point, my dad said, we got to get you out of political science. You don't have much of a future in that. You don't have the money. You don't know the right people. So, and I always wanted a career that was not sitting in front of a desk. And at that time, I couldn't say sit in front of a computer. But so I started taking photos, like I said, and entering some contests, because people can tell you that you're good, like family and friends, but until you really know. So I entered some contests, did pretty well. Then I applied at Brooks Institute, and took about 6 months well, I was accepted, and then it took 6 months to actually get into my first class in there, and that was February of '79.
There's probably a good part of our audience who has no idea what Brooks Institute is. Can you just kind of give a background about what Brooks was and kind of the role it played in the photography industry?
So Brooks Institute, it opened up, I think, in the 50s. And it was Brooks Institute, Rochester Institute of Technology, and Art Center in Pasadena were the three schools that offered a bachelor's degree in commercial photography. And that was very important to me to get a bachelor's degree because in my family, my brother and my sister, they went to college, but they never got their degree. Anyway, I just wanted to get the degree. I went and checked out Pasadena in the summer of '78. And then I went to Santa Barbara to check out Brooks, and there's no comparison between Santa Barbara and Pasadena.
Yeah.
So it was a beautiful campus. So anyway, Brooks, they give you the degree. You have to have other credits from a previous school to be able to get your 4-year degree, because Brooks was only 2.5-year program year-round to get that degree. So anyway, Brooks was my choice. Art Center was second choice, and that's a great school, and they're still offering photography degrees. But Brooks sold, I don't know how many years ago, to a company, and they moved to Ventura, California. Then that went away. So I don't know about Rochester Institute of Technology if they still offer it, but obviously with digital photography and the instant scene in the back of your camera to know what you're getting, rather than with film, it's very difficult, and you need to learn a lot more about photography in the sense of lighting and your settings on your camera and so on compared to a digital camera. Anyway, Brooks was an excellent education. the main thing I got out of it, besides learning photography, was having the confidence based on who you were learning photography skills and technique from, the instructors there. So I came
Right.
out of that school and saying, this is the way I'm supposed to shoot it based on what I was taught. And that gave me the confidence to know at any size job, this is the way you shoot it, rather than me trying to pick and choose information
Hmm.
like people do now, of course.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So I felt that that was my best way to go. Um, and the schooling was excellent. The assignments they gave us, it was a hard-nosed school. There was no slack in there. We
No.
had to get our own props, hire our own models. It was an excellent school. So I come up to Portland from the Bay Area, well, from Brooks,
Hmm.
being from the Bay Area. Then coming from to Portland, oh, it's a small city. I moved up here because my family had moved up here
Mm, okay.
a couple years previous. I said, oh yeah, I could just be here a couple years and then go back to LA or New York, and away I go. So I come up here in 81. Kind of a recession was going on at that time.
Right.
And it wasn't as I was kind of cocky, and it was not as easy as I thought. You show your portfolio, and you think, well, how come I'm not getting all this work? Well, Portland was a very creative town, but it wasn't a pro-business city.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget looking at some ads, some slicks or whatever, and I said, well, I could do that. How come these people aren't hiring me? Well, there's more than just presenting your work and being a good photographer. You have to have that network of
Hmm.
knowing who the creatives are, who the art directors are, and so you have to adapt to that. So,
Yeah, and that was a different world entirely back then. I mean, where ad agencies were kind of the driving force between, photographers and getting work and things like that. Um, and you talked about being mentored by people that were actually professionals in the field when you were at
mhm.
Brooks. You were learning from not from college professors. These were people that actually were skilled in the craft,
Yes.
working professionals, which
Mhm.
is significantly different than if somebody jumps into a college program now, and a world of difference from somebody that watches YouTube.
Well,
in,
exactly.
in
And
the world today.
I know some of the kids that are teaching now, and that's fine. But somebody that's in their 50s that has been through the industry, understands the industry, and that's who were learning from.
Yeah.
Um, so, one phrase that I've mentioned this to you in the past, one of the professors, the instructors said to us, he says, you'll never lose sleep out of not having enough work if you deliver a good product on time at a fair price. And I said, okay, I could do that. And
Yeah.
I kept delivering at those with those criteria, and it wasn't so busy at the beginning. So,
Yeah.
um,
Well, yeah, it was a hard slog during those years in the 80s. There was some pretty stiff competition. There were a lot of good shooters, especially in markets like Portland and other places. So for a new guy, that was a tough one.
well, there's a lot, and there was a lot of competition, but there wasn't, like I mentioned to you before. Say I went to a Cleveland, Chicago, Atlanta, Houston, places that creatives might not want to live in. They want to live in Portland, but there's a lot of corporate offices. There's a lot of corporate headquarters. And here we
Yeah.
had Nike. Everybody wanted to shoot for Nike. That was it.
Right.
Well, how many people can shoot for Nike, right? And I did shoot some for Nike. And
Hmm.
um, at the beginning, I picked up Red Lion Hotels was one of my main accounts,
Okay.
and it was great. But I was also shooting for Nike,
Mm.
and so one of my mistakes was Red Lion didn't last forever. They got bought out.
Right.
Nike's still with us, and I should have at that point given more effort to Nike and less to Red Lion. But I was putting about 40% of my effort into Red Lion. But how would I have known crystal ball to see that Red Lion was going to get bought out and Nike would
Yeah.
prevail?
Yeah.
So
I mean
that's
that's
the
tough.
key thing. Yeah.
So you had kind of a kind of a broad commercial mix when you
Mhm.
first started shooting. You were shooting product
Studio.
photography and studio, and did you have a studio of your own at that time?
We had a studio downtown Portland, and it was
Okay.
an old cracker factory. And they said, and it was huge open space. And they said,
Hmm.
could you, wherever you put the wall on this hardwood floor, wherever you put the wall up, that's going to be your space. So my brother helped me out. We built a built a wall, sheet rocked it, and that was the space. And so I enjoyed shooting product and food is very intense and tedious.
Oh yeah.
But I was good at shooting food, and then I got started thinking, okay, I don't want to be inside all the time. I grew up in California, and I want to be outside.
Hmm.
So you got all your doors, windows closed. You don't want any light. You're shooting strobe.
Yeah.
And so, and that's when, fast forward, we can talk about it. Fast forward to 87 when I started shooting more architecture. And I shoot
Okay.
interiors and architectures all along, but I wanted to go more towards that direction. So I was out in the field more.
So that was a conscious choice to kind of move into architecture then and
Right.
away from the other commercial work. And how did you start to make that transition?
Well,
What
I
did that look like?
consciously, backing up a bit. So coming out of Brooks, I felt like I was a good photographer. I wasn't like the top guy. You never know who the top guy was. Anyway, but I always felt I had a good business sense.
Hmm.
So in 87, when I decided to start going towards um, architecture, interiors, exteriors, I presented my work to Oregon Home Magazine, which is a very good magazine back in the day.
Yeah.
And so I got to know the interior designers, the people, the who's who in the industry. Plus, I was published. And that was one of them. That was a great choice, I'd say, or direction for me to get into the field by being published. This is way before the internet,
Yeah.
and to meet those people that were movers and shakers in the industry. And I'm still photographing for some of those people that I met way back in the day when I first met them in Oregon through Oregon Home Magazine.
Okay.
So they were just a client of mine. It wasn't like I was on contract with Oregon Home to shoot for them. It wasn't like I was an employee. So,
Uh-huh. Yeah. Right.
um,
And
yeah.
then how did you build from there?
Well, I also shot for Seattle Homes and Lifestyles up north, and that was another way to build my portfolio. And then I was showing my work around, meeting and showing my portfolio to
Hmm.
some of the larger architectural firms.
Okay.
Um, and then through my stock photography, which started in basically in 97, I would get work from people seeing my shots on Shutterstock, iStock. Well, actually, it wasn't iStock at that time, but Corbis, and
Hmm.
they would hire me based on what they saw through my stock photography.
Okay.
So it's all about being in front of people
Yeah.
in the community with them and networking.
And were you doing all your own marketing at that time, or did you have a rep, or how were you handling that?
I did have a rep for part of the time. Yes, I had a rep that just represented me for Geldwin because Geldwin was out of Portland.
Hmm.
Then they moved back to North Carolina, I think it is. And so she would just handle my Geldwin, and I gave her not the 25%, I gave her the 10% because it was just this one account
Okay.
uh, that I gave her. And that made a big difference because she was in front of that client and she was
Mm.
the one that negotiated the fees.
Okay. And this is back. You're shooting 4x5
Yeah.
film at this time primarily.
Well, see, yeah, one of my big accounts back in the day was Chart House. And so I was shooting Chart House restaurants,
Hmm.
55 of them out of the 65, all 4x5.
Yeah.
So you go on the road and you shoot in three or four different locations at a time. So you bring your 4x5, you're loading it. When you got it, it was just quite the process. And a little bit of two and a quarter, but rarely did I shoot 35, maybe a little bit for Red Lion hotels.
Mm.
Um, but to know how to use that 4x5 was a feat and something that I was proud of to be able to
Yeah.
pull off.
Yeah. That's a skill that, um, well, I think it's kind of being rediscovered now. I see a lot
Hmm.
of people that are online talking about how, they're giving demonstrations about how to use it. And I'm thinking, yeah, you really don't know how to use it. You shouldn't be teaching this, but they're
Oh, I
teaching it
know, but
anyway.
people want to teach when they shouldn't be teaching, but that's another story.
Um,
But the 4x5, again, it's coming out of Brooks. You have the confidence that
oh,
you are using
sure.
it the correct way. And so that I always go back to that. And to this day, I might be doing a setup, a shot, and I still think about this little thought in my back of my mind, what they have taught us.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's just too bad it's not around anymore. But again, Art Center is what I recommend. And one of my assistants went to Art Center
Oh,
on
okay.
my recommendation, and I followed him all the way through. And it's a very good school. And they use some of the first classes are they talk about film. So anyway,
Hmm. Yeah, good experience there. So, as far as your architecture, when did that kind of become the bulk of your work, or is it the bulk of your work at this point?
oh
I
sure,
take
for
it that it is. Yeah.
yeah, it definitely is.
Okay.
Well, you compare it also to stock.
Hmm.
Stock, my influence in stock is definitely architecture, my stock images, but stock
Hmm.
isn't what it used to be. But I still submit to stock
Okay.
because I like it. I like to see what I'm getting every month, and it helps out
Sure.
with the cash flow. With the cash flow, but yes, definitely product. I don't do a lot of product anymore. I'm just really not pursuing that.
Hmm.
But I do industrial also. Like I had a shoot a couple weeks ago
Okay.
for Develon tractors up in the woods,
Oh, yeah.
log loaders up in the forest by Mount St. Helens. So I love being out in the
That's
woods.
fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you got adrenaline. This thing's picking up these logs. You're running around. You got a hard hat on, of course, but
Yeah.
there's nothing like being in the woods doing a shoot.
No, that's great fun. Those things are always so much
Hmm.
fun. You use assistants for most of
Yeah,
your
I
work?
always use 80% of the time I use assistants. I was telling my wife the other day, I probably have had close to 80 assistants over the last 45 years. Now, assistant, not meaning that they're full time, they only work for me, but I might have one assistant that does maybe 5 jobs for me
Hmm.
or 10. But in the studio, I had a few people that were pretty much full time, but I use assistants now to help with setting up the lights, moving things around, the reflectors. It just goes a lot easier and smoother for me to have that, to have an assistant on site. Like when we're shooting up in the woods with the
Oh, yeah.
Velon, I had some flash fill. He was moving that around.
Mm.
Uh, and then as far as for drones, I usually have an assistant for drones because I'm on the ground
Hmm.
shooting and they're up in the air. And we're shooting at the same time of day, whether it be twilight.
Yeah.
And Alan, you and I have talked about in the past. So yeah, I like assistants. Sometimes they pursue me. They ask if I'm looking for anybody because they'll
Yeah.
assist me and then they go on their own.
Sure.
I
Yeah. You
kind
end
of,
up training them and then they end up competing with them. So,
yeah, that happens. That happens.
yeah, that's kind of the,
Kind of get over that after the beginning. I
oh, yeah.
remember, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's kind of the way that everybody used to come up, kind of through the ranks, but you see it less and less anymore. Talk a little bit about the transition into digital for you. What was that like, and when did that
Mm.
happen?
Yeah, that was 2005, 2006. I was a little bit
Okay.
stubborn because it meant that I was going to be spending more time in front of the computer.
Hmm.
So I wanted to learn it the right way. So I bought my first digital was a Canon. I started with Nikon with film.
Mm.
And I went and called Brooks Institute. I said, "Do you have a top student that they could teach me how to use this camera?" Rather than just go into Pro Photo and say, "Hey, show me how to use this camera."
Yeah.
So I went down to Brooks, down to Santa Barbara, and I met for I don't know how many 4 hour, 5 hours with one of the students and paid them, of course, to show me how to use a digital camera. And that worked out well.
That's
Some of the
really smart. Yeah.
well, just something I just was thinking about the best way to do it because I
Hmm.
had so much respect for Brooks and that's how I found my one of my first digital techs was through Brooks when I called them to say,
Oh,
well,
okay.
who's your top digital student that can help me with the digital part, whether it be Lightroom and Photoshop. So
Hmm.
to this day, he still works with me on some projects.
Oh, wow. Okay. And have you stayed with the Canon cameras since then?
Yeah,
Or
I stay with Canon just because of the tilt shift lenses.
yeah.
I do have the Fuji 50 millimeter digital
Hmm.
GFX, but I don't use that as much as because of the workflow. Because one of my stock agencies, CGI backgrounds, they do the backgrounds for the auto industry. They were
Okay.
requesting that I have larger files, and they were requesting that I would
Oh,
shoot with the Fuji. And the
I
Fuji's
see.
a beautiful camera, but I just like the Canon. And where I am with my career right now, I just want to keep it rolling and keep shooting the way I do, and maybe I'll start using the Fuji a little bit more. But at this point, I like the Canon, the quality of it, and the look. The
Yeah.
look. I never went to Sony because I don't want to. I'm not slamming Sony. I think they do a great project, have a great product, but uh, I didn't. I like the Canon look rather than the Sony. I know the Sony you could shoot with a higher ISO and things, and that's
Yeah.
great if people can make that work. But I like the Canon. And I think it's like anything else. When something makes money for you, you're loyal to them.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, at least as far as architectural shooters, um, for some reason, it's predominantly Canon shooters.
Hmm.
And we obviously don't require high ISOs, and um, we're not shooting 8K video necessarily, and things like that. So and really fast shutter bursts and all that kind of stuff. So it's a good fit, and I guess it's the tilt shift lenses that kind of maybe are the entrance point for a lot of us with the
Hmm.
Canon system. So
And
that's
with the
good.
other, I want to just mention one other aspect. So the larger the sensor or the larger the piece of film. So if you're going with 4 by 5 compared to 35,
Hmm.
the larger that records your image, the more depth you have in it, more of a three-dimensional look.
Yeah,
And some people might not see that, but unless you compare it side by side. So that 2 1/4 is going to give you a little more of that three-dimensional look than the 35.
yeah,
So, but some people can't really see that unless they compare it side by side. But I know in magazines sometimes you can see that difference
sure.
um, with the 2 1/4.
Yeah,
So,
I'm sure you're like me. You'll get clients who may have you reshoot something at some point that somebody else has shot, and they can see a difference, but they can't verbalize what the difference
mm,
is. But they can tell that there's a difference in what you've done and what somebody else may have done. And it may come down just to sensor size sometimes,
right.
or it may come down to lighting, which is what I also wanted to mention. How much lighting do you use, and how much is lighting a part of what you do?
Well, everybody's got their own approach.
Yeah,
But coming from an advertising background where I was using a lot of lighting,
yeah.
and you would sculpture the shot, you would create mood, impact.
Hmm.
So I do use a strobe quite a bit, but I want my strobe to look natural. And I want to supplement the natural light that's already there. Okay. So, and in our weather up here, you don't always know what you're going to get. So you're going to have a little bit of light coming in to kind of highlight things. Sometimes I'll just use available. I think that one of the biggest things over all these years is I'm able to see light. I was able to see light early.
Hmm.
The older I get, the more I see it in how you go from room to room and get a feel for how I'm going to shoot the
Hmm.
space based on where the light is and what the weather's doing, changing
Yeah.
with shadows coming in. And if you're going to put some buffers up to block it and subtract light and add light, and now as you see in architectural, we talk about this in our Zoom calls,
Yeah.
it's very dramatic. Okay, a lot less flash fill at all. It's more flash as your dominant light rather than
Hmm.
any kind of flash fill. Very dark, very moody, almost to the extent of, well, you can't really see what you're trying to get. So it depends who your client is. Your
Right.
architectural, say your architectural firms, they might not want that mood as much compared to an interior designer.
Hmm.
And the shoot's going to be for like Lux Magazine.
Yeah.
But yeah, but as far as lighting, I do enjoy using the lights. I have the when I first started, you shoot Polaroids on the back of your 4 by 5 or 2 1/4 to see how that strobe's reacting.
Sure.
But as time goes on, obviously with digital, you can just shoot and you can see it. But
Hmm.
as I'm just setting up, I'm pretty good now at just seeing where that light's going to be, even
Yeah.
without even looking on the camera, based on that strobe. So I just think your brain adapts um, magically. I don't want to say magically, but amazingly uh, to create and produce the images that you want. It's almost like muscle memory.
Hmm.
Um, like a basketball player shooting those hoops over and over. If you do it long enough, it just really just starts filling in the blanks for you, your mind, and it helps the more you shoot.
I think that's
So,
really true. Yeah, I think you get a sense for the light, and even if you're using strobes and things like that. I remember really early on when I started out, I worked with a photographer who didn't use a meter,
mm,
and he used strobes, and we would shoot Polaroid, And once in a while, we'd have to shoot two Polaroids,
No.
but generally, you know, he was bang on. And
Hmm.
I was just flabbergasted. I couldn't understand how he could see the light and
Hmm.
anticipate the light like that. And it was just experience. He
It
just
is
he
experience.
just knew what was going to happen. And I was always amazed by that because I was, that was back when I had, my Pentax spot meter and had to meter everything to
Hmm.
death. But yeah, it gets intuitive after a while, and I'm sure um, those are listening to that, hopefully they'll maybe think about that as they are metering. Maybe they'll start to try to see the light rather than meter the light, and that'll
Yeah, and
push them
we
to another level.
right. I had the Minolta color meter too.
Oh, sure, yeah.
You'd have that special attachment you put on for strobe, and then you filter your strobes
Hmm.
because back in the day with film, you couldn't always correct. But then I started shooting more. Instead of shooting E6 transparency, I'd shoot negative C41, and that was a lot more forgiving.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Like I actually scanned it because it would make up for the green from a fluorescent light. Because back in the day, you'd put a magenta filter tube over the tube of the fluorescent light to get rid
right,
of the
yeah.
green. But then when Fuji came out with their film that corrected that, it was a lifesaver.
That was a lot. That was really helpful. In fact, I've still got a case of magenta filter. So,
All right.
but yeah, that was, yeah. For those who are not familiar with that process, where you'd correct all the light sources to try to balance to the film you were using, and sometimes you'd correct, over the lens too, and so
All
multiple
right.
exposures on a single sheet of film, and
Mm.
it was very complex.
Hmm.
Digital has solved a lot of those problems. Um, I want to talk about business and client relations and things like that. When you go after a new client now, or um, what's your method for marketing yourself now? Do you have a specific marketing plan that you follow at this point in your career?
Well, I have different companies like AIAP that keeps my name out there. Wonderful Machine, Found, ASMP. I don't have a rep, currently have a rep.
Hmm.
I I tell my assistants there's one of three things I want to do every day. Maybe do all three or just one out of three, but at least one out of three. And one of those three is marketing, and then the second is billing, and then shooting. If I can do one of those three every day. So marketing, no matter how busy I am. So if I'm coming back from a shoot, I'll call one of my accounts to just stay in front of them because I remember reading long ago. I don't know what the statistic is, but it's three or four times harder to get a new client than it is to keep your client. So always keep
Sure.
your existing client. And as you know, it's very competitive. It's always been competitive.
Hmm.
Then we have Instagram and we got digital and we got all that. So people are constantly being bombarded with creatives that want to shoot for them, which is great. We're all there. But as far as getting a new work, it's also when I'm shooting a project and there's somebody else on the project besides the architect, interior designer, it might be the landscape architect. So you're meeting them for the first time.
Right.
And so that's how you kind of keep cultivating it, the accounts. But just being in front of people, and like I mentioned, Alan, in a Zoom call recently with you, with AIAP, a lot of young photographers, all they do is just do emails. They don't
Right.
pick up the phone.
Yeah.
They don't have those conversations. They don't take out people out to lunch, which kind of is a lost art. Is face to face. And
I
I'm a
think
people
so.
person. I wasn't always a people person. I was shy as a kid and teenager, but there's a couple events that happened in my life, and I had to be a little bit more forceful and be out in front. And so I like being in front of people, and that's why I enjoy what I do. And that's the key is when you're excited after all these years about doing a shoot. Like
Hmm.
I got one on a big one on Thursday. I'm in my heart, I'm excited. And once that goes away, that's when you got to maybe start thinking about a different career. But
Right.
like you, after all these years, you still enjoy it. You still look forward and you're still excited about it because you look at these
Sure.
musicians that are hitting close to 80, whether it be Boss Skaggs or Michael McDonald, and they're still out there performing. They don't need the money. So we have a passion. We keep doing it, and so that passion is uh, comes out when we're trying to get new work and keep the clients that we have. They want to see that passion, and plus we want to be relevant, right? We want to be relevant in
Well,
the
sure.
styles that we shoot. And I
Yeah.
think to see somebody like me that's going to be 68 on Sunday, I said, "Is this guy still relevant?" And yeah, I said, "Yeah, yeah."
Well, I mean, we're the same age, and so, but I can tell you that for me personally, I think the last couple of years I've done my best work
Mm.
of my entire career.
Oh yeah.
Um, and you may look at your work and feel the same way about it. I'm kind of, I think I'm to the point now where I've got it figured out. I think I'm kind of,
You know, it takes a while, right? And these young kids what listen to us, Alan, think, okay, we only started 2 years ago, and it takes 40 years to figure it out.
well, it kind of does, you know.
Well,
Um, there's I've gone to workshops over my career with mostly with fine art photographers, and I'm not going to drop a bunch of names, but some of the legendary photographers I've gone to their workshops over the years, and honestly, for a lot of them, they're very humble about the fact that they're still figuring a lot of this
hmm
stuff out, and one of them in particular, I could remember saying, last week I just learned that I can do this with this.
hmm
And I was kind of astounded by that. And I find that really refreshing. And I feel the same way, where I'm just, there's things that I learn as I'm processing stuff, last week on a project, that if I tweaked a certain thing a certain way to recover a certain color in a shadow or something like that. And so, yeah, at 68, I still feel relevant. And hopefully my clients still think I
Yeah,
am
we're
as
always
well.
learning. And
But
I think, like, go ahead.
yeah, it's one of those things where I'm not sure that creative disciplines, really have age specific categories, quite honestly.
hmm
And music is this, you made the music analogy. I totally agree with that. Um, but and I think photography falls into that same situation. You talked about the face to face and taking people to lunch, and I couldn't agree more with that being such a lost art. I mean, that was a really scary thing for me when I first started out, going to lunch with a client or
hmm
going in and meeting. When I first started out, it was just, me with my portfolio under my
hmm
arm, marching into an ad agency and seeing if I could talk to the creative director kind of thing. And that's pretty terrifying. It would have been a lot easier if I could just send a text, but I know I
hmm
wouldn't have gotten the job
hmm
or I wouldn't have gotten the client or or if it was the art buyer at a company or a magazine or whatever like that. So it's a whole different situation. uh,
Yeah.
to
And
to
going and
jump
taking
in
somebody
and
out to lunch. Yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
just meet somebody
hmm
directly like that. Business wise, you talked about the fact that you had to have some business skills as in your education with Brooks and things like that. How important do you think good business skills have been to
hmm
beyond your photography talent to keeping you in business this long?
I think that you're being an entrepreneur, which we are,
Yeah.
and the instincts that you have, and some of those are you're born with them. Some of you learn from people mentoring you or from your parents or your parents' friends. I think that's so important is to, and I get it with the Wall Street Journal. I read a lot about business. Okay.
Hmm.
I know about it. I know how our market is changing here in Portland. Who's our biggest clients that I could go after, but also having that sixth sense. My brother, Bob, who's 9 years older than myself, he was into selling tractors. Okay. So he would give me advice on how he would close the deal.
Hmm.
Okay. And so that was very helpful. So you just want to not be too prideful. You want to learn where you can from photography to the business side of it and learn how you can exude some confidence, exude how to be a businessman in this ever changing world. I remember one of my first shoots, I was only 20, 23, 24, and I was shooting for an insurance company, a big insurance company. I had my lights set up, I had an assistant, and like one of the VPs came out and said, "Who is this guy? Who is this young kid? Is he still in high school doing the shoot?" So the key about is having confidence that you are coming across that you do know what you're doing in the business sense. Now, as far as business, we've talked about this. In photography, we don't always know what the best rates are to choose to pick because we don't know what everybody else is charging. It's not like
Hmm.
a lawyer, doctor, engineer. Things are not always published what the rates are. So in that sense, you really need to have that business know-how and gut feeling what to charge. One of my first shoots was shooting for the original Pancake House.
Oh yeah.
In Portland, they have about 45 different locations, and the owner at the time, I said, how do you come up with your pricing? Because making breakfast the price is very nominal. You got flour, eggs, and so on. It's not
Yeah.
like high-end restaurant for dinners. He says, whatever the market will bear. I kind of bump up to wherever the market will bear, and you'll hear that a lot
Hmm.
in a lot of different industries.
Yeah. Good advice. And sometimes we sell ourselves short with, and it's a matter of confidence. Sometimes I think photographers in general are maybe a little bit, I don't know, not terribly confident about some of them are cocky, but in general, not terribly confident and tend to pull back a little bit about what they charge. And like you say, if you're really busy, then that's the time to push your fees up. And another thing is that perceived value, which we've talked about in our Zoom meetings. There was a time right after the pandemic where um, people dropped their rates, and then there were some of us who jumped our rates, and the ones that dropped their rates didn't survive. Um, so it was kind of counterintuitive, but it was kind of a survival strategy.
Mhm.
And it was really a lot of it was based on the perceived value of what people were doing. So that's an important lesson right there. It just kind of goes against what you think, but um, yeah, you've got to make enough to make it worthwhile.
Well, and yeah, and
You're a
everybody's in a
professional.
different, right. And Alan, everybody's in a different situation in their
Sure.
if their spouse works, um, what the whole package is coming into the family, so to speak.
Hmm.
My wife, she did faux painting for a while. That was a good job. Then she
Hmm.
worked as a receptionist, but then she raised the kids for a while, and then now she's a flight attendant, so she has more time to
Hmm.
be able to because the kids are all grown up, and we got the five grandkids now.
Yeah.
Um, and that gets me into the stock photography that helped out. So I had a business sense. I'll never forget. I just woke up one day, but I felt like, okay, all the money that I'm making today or this week is based on me taking a photo, that one photo at that one time. I want to make money when I'm not shooting for an assignment. So I started shooting stock
Yeah.
because that could be generating money for me besides when I'm just doing the main shoot. It's kind of like an author. He writes a book, right? Makes money, residuals off of that, rather than
Hmm.
just writing a column in the newspaper. He says, I want to make more money than just writing a column in the paper. I want to, and so they write books, and those things are
Sure.
just constantly selling. So that's why I got into stock also, and that's a business sense that I had at that time in '97. Yeah.
Yeah. That is so wise to have that additional income stream, and that's kind of what um, is a make or break for a lot of photographers. Um, we saw that with the recession in '08 and '09, where a lot of really talented photographers uh, just kind of had to find other jobs because um, their clientele kind of evaporated and they didn't have a backup plan, um, and so they just had to find something else to do, which was really unfortunate. A lot of things
Mhm.
went away. A lot of
Mhm.
segments of the photography industry went away. The portrait and wedding industry just kind of was turned upside down during that time. If looking back on things, is there anything that you would have maybe done a little differently if you'd had the foresight over the past 45 years to
Well,
change?
as you asked that question, I met with a couple of photographers. One's very successful in Portland. He's got over 200 employees. He's got three locations around the world, shooting mostly product,
Okay.
shoes, fashion, and so on.
Hmm.
And when I met with him over coffee, there was another commercial photographer just happened to be in line in front of us. And so we all got together. We started talking about how we started. And the one gentleman that's very successful with the three studios, he assisted another photographer here in Portland. And that's where he learned his business sense because he didn't have any background in photography. He didn't go to school for it, whatever. But he was mentored by this photographer in the studio.
Okay.
When I graduated from Brooks, I went down to LA, which is about a 90-minute drive, and I tried to assist down there.
Hmm.
But I only gave it maybe a month or two chance, and it really didn't work out. That's when my brother was up here, and he says, "You got to move up to Portland, because I got some contacts for you." So the one thing, if I had assisted someone in a successful studio at the very beginning, I think that would have given me a little bit more insight into the markets up
Hmm.
here and knowing that market by assisting somebody in the market.
Okay.
Also, my son-in-law, Juan, who's just finishing up at Duke MBA program,
Hmm.
executive MBA program, they say if you want to start a business after you got the MBA, you got an idea, you want to start another Uber or some kind of delivery company, whatever, or a drone manufacturer, uh, whatever the business, how small, big or large, you don't want to just start off by yourself. You want to start off with a partner, and they don't want that partner to be a family member.
Mm.
I know a couple of photographers in town that have they partnered together and they've done well. Now they've had to split the profits, and I never wanted to do that. But I do
Hmm.
know a buddy of mine, uh, and there's two of them in a video production company. The one of them does marketing, and the other one does the video shooting and editing.
Okay.
And so I think there's something to be said about that,
Hmm.
starting in the business and being with a partner. I
Mm.
think that's important. I never did that, but also the assisting the right guy or the right firm to
Hmm.
learn the different levels of the business side of photography. So those are two things in
Yeah.
hindsight.
Great advice. I appreciate that. I
Hmm.
assisted a few photographers early on, and what I learned was how not to run a business.
Mm, right?
Their business sense was abysmal. So
Yeah.
I learned from their mistakes, that was valuable, that
Hmm.
in and of itself. But yeah, the assisting, I didn't learn so much technically, but I did learn, yeah, don't do this with a client kind of thing. So
Oh, right. Just observing in the background.
yeah,
Is that what you're
mhm,
saying? Yeah.
yeah, that things go south really fast if you act like that kind of stuff. So,
Hmm.
um, is there anyone in your family that showed an interest in your business, or are you kind of going to
Well,
have
my
to show it
daughter,
yourself?
Janae, her talent is superior to mine as far as her initial talent in photography.
Okay.
Got a great eye. She started doing photography in high school, and some of the assignments she did was like blew me out of the water. I was like, Janae, you got to pursue this. So she went to New York and she interned for a month and a half at a big time studio.
Oh,
She says, Dad, too much stress. I don't want to do photography. So now she's raising her three kids, of course, and then she's a realtor also in
okay.
five different states basically now.
Mm.
But she's very creative, has an excellent eye, and my youngest works at Nike, and his wife works in the photography department as a producer.
Oh,
And my oldest lives in Boston, and he works for John Hancock, so he's more of a numbers guy.
yeah.
So anyway, but nobody to carry the torch. I think when all of a sudden we all have egos, right, Alan?
Yeah, we do.
Okay, and I like the fact that being a creative, you're solving a problem, you're providing a service that people are able to make money off of our photos, and so
Hmm.
But with stock, I like that this legacy of my how many images I have, probably 6 or 7 thousand images with these different agencies are going to keep selling
Oh, sure.
after I'm gone.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that
so
archive just lives on. That'll outlive you. That's wonderful. That's
so
amazing.
that's fun. Because
Yeah.
I like being creative. Everybody likes that part of what we do. That's why we do it. But we also like
Yeah.
community and being. We've talked about this. The great job with the Zoom calls that you provide. That community, even though it's electronic community, it's not person to person, face to face. Um, It is face to face, but it's not in person. Is that we like community, even though we have this job and we're often solo
Hmm.
with what we do.
Yeah. It's harder and harder to have community as photographers anymore, I think. It's not like when we used to be able to, meet everybody that was working in your same market because you had to go to the same lab or,
Right.
buy
We
buy
had,
film
yeah.
at the same stock house, that kind of stuff.
Well, we had you develop. Well, we all went. It was rental dark rooms,
Yeah, sure.
and there was about 15 dark rooms there, black and white color, and so you'd see what everybody was coming up with. You see, sometimes they were a little bit secretive when it come out of the processor, the print would come out of the machine. You said, "Oh, what you got going on? What are you shooting there?"
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And some people kind of get it out of the hopper real quick and say, "Oh, you don't need to know what I'm shooting," kind of thing. But anyway, the community, um, and I think that's important
I do too.
to get to know your other comrades, so to speak,
Hmm.
because we all admit, I admit, there's a couple of photographers that were very competitive. Okay. How many times have you gone to a shoot and there's another photographer there for whatever reason, and you're kind of looking over your shoulder like, now who's this hit there, you know? And you say, okay, this guy's good, but yeah, he's kind of into my territory. So once you get to know them, then that barrier gets kind of broken down a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think that's important too. We don't have these barriers that we're in this together, but we could be competing against the same jobs.
Yeah. I don't think it's as friendly a competition as it used to be. I mean, I've had some situations where it's not been as friendly as what I it used to be with other photographers, lately. So, that's kind of a strange situation.
That's too bad.
Yeah, it's just a little weird. So I've had to institute and no other photographers on the
Mm,
property policy,
mhm.
um, or I'm not going to be there kind of situation because it just impedes my day, because I've got influencers that are doing TikTok videos and stuff like that all over.
Oh, I see. So more than just still photography, there's doing some TikTok or
No,
something.
yeah, it's people that are messing with lights and all kinds of
Oh,
things.
yeah.
It's not serious photography. It's just kind of nonsense. And people will be offended that I said that, but that's fine. Um, but if you were, giving advice to somebody that wanted to get into architecture photography right now,
Mm.
would it be to assist somebody like yourself, or um, seek out an education comparable, or say like Art Center or something like that?
Well, it's a
What would
great
you say?
question. It's a great question because you want to shadow to see if this is the kind of industry you want to be in.
Yeah,
Do you have the talent to, and who's going to tell you if you have the talent or not? If your
right.
parents tell you, that's why I wanted to, like at the beginning of the conversation, I mentioned that I entered some contest to see how I would actually do. Assisting is very important. They get a sense for that, but then sometimes people get they assist for almost too long. They keep assisting after 5, 10
Yeah,
years. It's like, okay, you
exactly.
want to get out on your own. They don't make the plunge, and they don't have the courage to make the plunge. But
Mm.
Alan, great question in the sense of, is this an industry that somebody's 23, 25 wants to start with? Now that we have this digital, we have a lot of competition based on other facets of photographing an interior without naming names. That I think is really, mm, I don't want to say compromise, but it's changed the industry. Okay.
Yeah.
So with me, to give advice to some of the younger generation that I know that are successful. Like one of my assistants that went to Art Center, he's in LA now shooting he's shooting product.
Hmm.
Okay, he just assisted me for a shoot about 4 months ago when I was shooting interiors, and he likes interiors, but he shoots product because it's a little bit more consistent.
Yeah.
You don't have downtimes based on the weather and
Right.
where you're going to be shooting. I think it depends on what market you're in. Like I mentioned
Mm.
before, if you're in a market that has a lot of corporate headquarters that need a lot of content shot, um, then I think you go for it. But you don't have to just shoot architecture. If you think I'm shooting food or whatever, fashion, so it doesn't mean you're interested in architectural photography. You could maybe branch out into a
Hmm.
different sector of photography. And I'm not saying weddings. One of the reasons why I went to Brooks is that I didn't have to shoot weddings. I didn't want to shoot weddings, so I went to Brooks to learn
Yeah.
commercial work.
Well, there's a lot of us that over the years have added on things like headshots, though. I mean, that's an easy
Yeah.
add-on, and there's still a lot in our group that headshots is a big part
Mhm.
of their business. I mean, in fact, I spun off a separate company entirely just to do headshots that I
Mhm.
later sold, because it would it kind of had a life of its own. But that's an easy one to add on for an
Mhm.
architectural shooter, and a lot of times product photography is as well. Um,
Mhm.
those kinds of things. Is travel a big part of your business, as far
It
as?
used to be. I tell you, Alan, as I always wanted to be on the road. I love being on the road, still to this day, but
Hmm.
everybody's different. I'm just telling you from my personal life, having these grandkids, it's just you want to spend as much time around them because they grow
Hmm.
up so fast. And then my wife, she flies with Alaska, and we get these benefits. And I go with her sometimes, but as we get older, she says, let's just spend more time together, maybe less shooting. I still want to shoot as much as I can, so don't. I'm not retiring or semi-retired, but I have to
Hmm.
balance it all.
Yeah.
But I do, and as you know, with digital, less equipment, the days of these 6 or 7 cases
Yeah,
has
it's a
really
lot
changed.
easier now. Yeah.
Has really changed. But I do like travel. Like I said, between Chart House, New Balance, and Red Line, I've been through most of the country. You even more than I have. But the Chart House was always in the best locations,
Mm,
Hawaii to New York to Florida. So I love that
nice.
part of it.
Yeah.
And I love traveling to Europe. I had a client that we went to Rome for 3 or 4 times. She was a opera singer, so I
Mm,
like that part of it. Um, but
yeah.
there's
That
something
is
that brings me back home with these kids. It's the craziest thing.
that
When it
is
was my kids, I want to get out, right? But when it's the grandkids, it's like
you can't
I want
say.
to be around them.
Yeah, that is one of the best parts of this business is the travel, I think.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, there was a time when I was on the road 10 months out of the year.
Mhm.
Um, and and for a long time my wife traveled with me. And so,
Mhm.
well, as soon as the kids were old enough to drive, then she started traveling with me, and so we were traveling 10 months out of the year,
Mhm.
um, and the upgrades are wonderful. And so, yeah,
Yeah,
it
it
just,
isn't. But let me give you this example because people are going to listen to this interview or people want to learn the industry, so to speak.
mm-hmm,
So New Balance was after Chart House, and they'd send me around the country to shoot their stores, right? And that was shooting 2.25 film,
mm-hmm,
scanning it and giving it digital.
okay,
But as more and more digital cameras came on, they would hire people in those locations instead of paying for my travel.
okay,
So what I found is you got to have a really good reason for them to pay for your travel to go do a shoot.
right,
Now, when I go to California for one client, I'll discount it because I said, oh, I got a place to stay, I got family and friends, I'll shoot some stock. Because especially in the wintertime, you want to go down to California or wherever, Texas, Arizona, and shoot
mm-hmm,
those sunnier locations. So sometimes you have to do sweeten the pie, so to speak, on
sure,
their travel costs by saying, okay, I'll discount this if we've got a couple, 3 locations to shoot.
mm-hmm,
So that helps. But
yeah,
I felt or feel when digital came on, they hired a lot more local than sending me around because of my specialty of being able to shoot 4x5 film
Mm,
for say, Chart House. So that's just my take.
yeah.
That's just my take. It doesn't mean that's the gospel. That means that's my take on it. And I know you shoot a lot because you have constant clients that like your style and they have locations throughout the country. And I think that's very important.
Yeah, well, and the advantage to them, and what they tell me anyway, is that they get a consistency to the
Mhm.
look throughout the
Mhm.
throughout the country, and so for them it's money well spent because then there's a consistency, and they don't have to, you know, they don't have to talk to anybody, in some far flung area and educate them on how they want a property
Mhm.
shot. They just send me there, and they know that it's going to come back and look like every
Right.
place else they sent me. So that's the advantage to them, and which brings up a point which kind of speaks to what you said before. One thing you learned, Brooks, was, and that I think that the biggest competitive advantage that any photographer can have is just to consistently do really good work,
Mm.
and just to always be pushing to do really excellent work for whoever the client is, because that's the best marketing tool that any of us have in the end, is that people will see that work and want to know who did it, and other, the people we did it for are going to be happy to share it with other people. And
Mhm.
um, I don't know, is social media a big deal for you as far as your marketing mix? Do you share a lot of stuff online,
Well,
or?
I do. I've got an assistant that she does my invoicing, she does my social media.
Hmm.
Um, Found a group that have my images with. They just promoted me in a gallery. There's
Okay.
about six other architectural photographers. Um, and after that came out, I got a lot more, not just likes, but followers. And I think social media, it's like advertising in the sense, okay, so I learned long ago when Ford Motor Company runs an ad, it's not necessarily to sell a car at that moment.
Hmm.
It's also to give those that have bought Fords the confidence that, hey, that's my car. I like that car. I want to keep my car. I might get another Ford, but it's not to buy that particular model at that moment. It's just to reinforce that they made the right decision. Okay.
Absolutely.
So I feel with Instagram, people aren't going to say, my clients say, oh, I just saw your Instagram feed. I'm going to hire you next week to do a shoot. I think it's subconsciously they see you, they see your images, and they see that you're relevant because they're getting blasted with all these other architectural
Right.
photographers, interior shooters, and I think it helps. It takes a little bit of work and time to do it. I don't do it every day. I try to do it once a week
Hmm.
uh, to post things. And I don't do, and that automatically goes to LinkedIn. I do need to start doing more blogging. I haven't done that yet, but
Mm.
it's about time with blogging. Um, like I said, my stock photos, I have my name on my stock photo, so
Hmm.
people can see that. That helps. Um, yeah.
That
So
reinforces, like you say, that reinforces that decision for
that
people,
they
and I
made.
think that's
Yeah.
hugely important. Yeah, that's a really excellent point. Um, where can people find you online? What's your website address?
Well, it's just David Papazian Photography or papazianphoto.com.
Yeah, we'll put a link in the description that accompanies the podcast, both the audio and the video that goes on YouTube and Spotify when this posts, which will be here just in a few days. Circling back to when you were, a teenager shooting, what was the camera you started out with?
Well, I had the Nichromat,
Okay.
remember that, when I went over to Europe. And then, yeah, that's why I use that most of the time. And I still remember the one photo I took on Lake Lucerne in Switzerland, where I
Oh,
had a couple boats in the foreground and then the lake and then the mountains. And I didn't uh, consciously have those stacked up that way, but I create a lot of depth. And then when my dad reinforced, it's what your parents tell you, right? And friends and family.
sure.
When my dad reinforced that I had good depth in my photos,
Mm,
and he sought out that photo in particular, pointed out that gave me the confidence that maybe this is what I need to do based on how I'm composing my photos. And that was one of the first, yeah. But the Nigromat was the camera.
Well, thank you, David, for taking time to speak with us today. It's obvious that you are where you are because of the fact that of how you can see things. It's your ability to see that, not just your ability to network and run a business and all those. It's the ability to see that's gotten you where you are, and I appreciate you taking time to share your insights and talk about your career and the road that you've taken to get to where you are today. So I really appreciate it, and wish you all the best. We look forward to hearing you again on some of our Zoom meetings, and hope to talk to you again soon.
Well, thanks, Alan. And
Thanks.
if anybody wants to contact me directly and ask any questions about my career, and if they're starting off, they've been around for a while, I'll definitely be, if I have time to field any of those questions. And Alan, I really appreciate you being in the forefront of mentoring so many people and keeping this community together of architectural photographers. So
Thank you, David. I appreciate it. We'll put your links down in the description. Until we talk to you again, take care.
This has been another episode of A Photographer's Life. If you've enjoyed this program, please let us know by liking this episode and subscribing to this channel. A Photographer's Life is brought to you by the Association of Independent Architectural Photographers. This episode is copyrighted and may not be used in full or in part without the written permission of the AIAP. Please join us again soon for another inside look at the world of professional architectural photography.